Shabbat Shalom. This week in Israel anyway, we're reading Parshat Behar. Now, I have to tell you that it's common practice in Droshot these days and for some time that the person who's giving the Dvar Torah will start off by pointing out to what seems to them to be superfluity, some extra language in the Torah, and propose an alternative expression which would use less words, and then go on to explain what additional things we learn, what insights we gain by having the Torah express things the way it does. I don't always enjoy that type of drush, but there are definitely some cases where the Torah repeats things, and even in the earliest Midrashei Chazal, there's necessarily an attempt to explain what we learn from it. Often, though, it's just to learn some additional details of the laws concerning that issue. Now, in this week's parsha, we have an example of this as something which is a very clear repetition. We're speaking of the Yovel at the pasuk that the first aliyah ends at, the before we call Sheni, says, "B'shanat Yovel azot tashuvu isha lechuzato." In this Jubilee year, each person will return to their holding, to their traditional, their family plots. But three pasukim before that, in the pasuk in the verse number 10, it already said, "V'shavtem isha lechuzato." It's almost the exact same language, and it's a clear repetition here. So Chazal, as I said, of course, aren't oblivious to this, and learn from it certain details about the laws pertaining to Yovel. For example, I quote here from Torah Kohanim, Krayaterahu, the Kvar Amav V'shavtem Isha Lechuzato, V'lazeh Amru Sheba L'Rabot, and it adds that it came to Hamocher Sadeh V'amad Beno V'Goala, someone who sold his plot to someone else, but he wasn't able to redeem it. He sold his plot. He sold his plot to someone, and his son redeemed it from the other person. You might think that it would stay in the family, whereas his son bought it, and the son is presumably his rightful inheritor. But Torah says no. Even in that case, where the son bought or redeemed the plot from some other person, in the Shnat Yovel, it goes back to the original owner. This is Isha Lechuzato, a fine point of the law. But in his wonderful lectures on the parsha that have been collected in Masoret Rav, the Rav of Soloveitchik has a very different reading, and I don't know if there's a source for it or if he has something original with him, but he takes this as a mitzvah. I don't think anyone ever counted it as one of the 613 commandments. But he doesn't learn from it a additional fine point of the law. He learns from it a mitzvah. He says, and I'm quoting from what he says here, he says that the restoration of ownership is far more than a financial legal process. Restoration of ownership is not simply, as we said, just the deed of the property transfer back to the original owner. The Rav goes on to say, and listen carefully, by religious obligation, he, that is a Jew, must return to and bond with his land. He must return to his ancestral heritage. So the Rav sees in this pasuk, this command that every 50 years, property reverts to the original owner, not simply as a matter of a real estate transaction, but as a way to compel people, as a religious obligation, to reconnect to their ancestral heritage. and bond with the land, because in the Yovel and in the Shemitah, we don't exploit the land as we do in regular years, and just we can out of it for for financial purposes, for a living, agriculture and whatnot. We simply bond with the land as the land that belongs to God and which God gave to us, the Jewish people. This is Rav says a religious obligation. So there's, I think, a very interesting insight. The Rav in some of his drashot that I've heard on tape as well, with regard to these type of issues, always says, I'm not speaking as a Zionist, and he's not, because, political Zionism was in many ways extremely secular and anti-religious. But as a Torah philosophy and as Torah teaching and as a normative practice imposed upon Jews, we must return to the land, bond with the land, bond with our ancestral heritage. So I think there's a nice insight from the Rav into our Parsha, and a nice way to really learn something completely new from this repetition of the verse. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.